Blog Talk Radio.
Hello and welcome to Around the Nest as we J-Talk our way around the Toronto Blue Jays minor league organization. Over the course of this show, we'll speak with AA New Hampshire's Bob Lipman, as well as AAA Buffalo's Ben Wagner, A Advanced Dunedin's Al Hernandez, and Class A Lansing's Trey Wilson. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler, also with the Lansing Lugnuts. Well, we begin right on up the ladder with the AA New Hampshire Fisher Cats and Bob Lipman. Bob, how are you?
Very well, Jesse, and good to be with you once again this week.
How are things right now going with New Hampshire? We knew that they had a rocky start to the year, but it seems like everything's settling down.
Well, we just finished up a 7-game road trip in New Britain yesterday with a win, so the Fisher Cats not only win the series from the Rock Cats 3 out of 4, but we had a 4-3 road trip, so coming home, I think, you start to feel a little bit better about things, and the pitching seems to be coming around very nice.
Well, last year, pitching was a huge strength of the team. We're seeing how Marcus Stroman and Sean Nolan are doing in AAA. Entering this year, I thought that your lineup was going to be excellent, but it seems like a number of players have gotten off to slow starts. Maybe some of them are coming around as well. Andy Burns, for example, looks like his bat is waking up.
Yeah, Burns is coming off of easily his best series of the season against the Rock Cats, so the 3-hit game yesterday and a couple of hits and 3 runs scored and in the night before that. So Andy Burns, you knew, was going to start to come around. I guess we can't hide the fact that the Fisher Cats are at the bottom of the Eastern League in terms of offense in the early going. Brad Glenn, I know you know how solid and consistent he has been. Ryan Schiff has done well. But there are a lot of young players that it's taking a little bit of time for them to get going. And now we have A.J. Hernandez back in the lineup. And that's only going to help, of course, as you move along. The more experience you have, the better.
The fun thing about A.J. Hernandez is everybody raves about his defense. And yet every time I look up, he's collecting another big hit for you.
It reminds me of Travis d'Arnaud, who, of course, we had in New Hampshire a couple of years ago and since moved on to the New York Mets. The defense is terrific, and then, he'll come up a clutch at bat in the 8th inning, and maybe he's 0 for 3 in the ball game, but he doesn't let the fact that he's up in a big spot, he's not nervous about that, and he's had some timely hits. AJ is going to be a tremendous all-around player.
And let me ask you, how is his defense looking?
It's a little tough coming out of this New Britain series because, first of all, he missed 12 games with a hamstring injury. So he returned to action on Monday, and Bobby Meacham only used him, I think, 5 innings in 2 of the 4 games. One of them we had a rain delay at the start, and he was scratched, and then he took yesterday off, which was a morning game after a night game. So it's inconclusive so far here in this 2014 season. Remember, he has been injured over the last couple of years, so we want to see that defense and, just give it a little bit of time.
We're speaking with Bob Lipman, broadcaster for the AA New Hampshire Fisher Cats on Around the Nest. Bob, was there a player or maybe players who, entering this season, they didn't jump off the page at you, but you've really been impressed with how they've gone about their business?
Well, Gregory Infante has emerged here over the last, about week and a half as dominating a closer as we have seen in New Hampshire in a while. Talking with one scout the other night, hit 96, 97 on the gun a couple of times. He gave up a hit yesterday, and in 4 saves in the last 10 days, that's the only hit or walk that he's allowed. So certainly a player that I didn't know a whole lot about coming into this 2014 season, but he's one I think who's going to be pretty good. He was signed in the off season by the Blue Jays. And then if you want me to throw one name out from an offensive standpoint, and a guy I didn't know a whole lot about, and I've watched him develop, is John Birdie, and I really like the way that he goes about the game. You know that he has tremendous speed, but he's going to be a pretty good ball player, good second baseman, and there's a little bit more pop in the bat than probably some people expected.
Another pitcher I'd love to talk about, and he does not have the velocity of, say, Greg Infante, but Casey Lawrence, when he was here in Lansing, was just a thrill to watch him pitch, painting the corner here, painting the corner there, and it's fun to watch, even as he climbs the ladder, that he's still seeing success with you.
Maybe one of the best control pitchers, control starters that we've seen, and you're right. Casey doesn't light it up in terms of the radar gun. A kid out of Albright College, which is in Reading, Pennsylvania, and he got the first 2 outs in the 8th inning the other night, then got hit for a double and a single and ended up losing a 2-1 ball game. But was right back to all smiles and hard work the next day, and you're certainly finding a guy who can, get you that 100 pitches and get out to the 8th inning. And what a nice luxury that is to have. And he's going to get some chances to advance along here. This is really his first serious stint at Double-A.
Something we would love is his mother, who's just a delight, would send out a newsletter to everybody in McSherrystown, Pennsylvania, any day he was scheduled to pitch. And so you had all of McSherrystown listening into every single game that he was on the mound. And I hope that still is going on, because you had Pennsylvania behind him wherever he went, wherever he excelled. And there he is, a 1.93 ERA, very little walks to speak of, not allowing too many runs, and being used in any kind of fashion that the Fisher Cats need him.
Yeah, and, he'll get some ground balls, and you're saying, oh, man, come on, get that for Casey. And he makes it so easy to play defense behind him because he's one of those quick workers. By the way, I'm going to transition to Deck McGuire in a second, but Casey is that guy who's out there on the mound working quickly on cold nights in New Hampshire or Connecticut in the early part of the season. Just really helps to keep guys in the game, and he really is just a solid professional, and he's been a pleasure to watch. Obviously, you mentioned he's in the one of the top ERA pitchers, not only in the Blue Jays organization, but in all of Double-A baseball. And Deck McGuire has kind of taken a page from that, and as Deck has become a better and better pitcher, a one-time first-round draft pick of the Blue Jays, who has been in New Hampshire forever now, you're seeing the same kinds of things, working quickly, getting the ground balls, doesn't go his way, doesn't let it bother him. And, that's really a big part of the development. And people ask me about that at Double-A. And listen, in baseball, things are going to go bad. You're going to give up hits. You're going to give up home runs. How well do you bounce back from that and move on to the next batter? And in both cases, we've seen a lot of maturity this year.
Speaking of development, you now have the Double-A debut of Michael Krause in your outfield, who has virtually every tool in the world. And my gosh, how has it been watching him every now and then, just those flashes, whether at the plate, in the field, with the arm on the bases?
The only thing we have not seen from Michael Krause yet, Jesse, and he is one of those guys now who's only about 50 at-bats into his first stint at Double-A, are the power shots. There's not been no home runs yet. He's got almost everything else going well for him. He's playing his arm is absolutely tremendous. So we've seen that on a few occasions already this year. He's got the speed on the base paths, and he's getting some hits, but a lot of outs to outfielders, and you know that they're going to come for him. And he's, I think, another one of these guys that you're going to want to watch here as you move along.
A guy I'd compare him to, maybe his swing has changed since we had him in Lansing, but a right-handed Chase Utley in that very little backswing, just a short chopping swing. But if and when he hits a home run, he hits some of the highest and most majestic home runs you will see. We'll see when that comes around. Lastly, with Bob Lipman with the Double-A New Hampshire Fisher Cats, our question of the week. And our question this week is, hey, for fans visiting New Hampshire from out of town over the course of this season, what advice would you give them, first in coming to your ballpark and also in seeing the area?
That's a great question because there are so many different ways that you can go to it. I mean, I hope that if it's your first trip up to New England, just you have to hit Boston. You can't. We're so close, so we're about an hour away. But let's say you wanted to stay in New Hampshire. We have attractions like there's NASCAR racing in the state. The Lake Winnipesaukee, where On Golden Pond is filmed, is here, and you can take a cruise on the MS Mount Washington boat. If you've got kids, we have the Canopy Lake Amusement Park. One of our partners with the Fisher Cats is a place called Santa's Village, where it's Christmas all summer long, and a chance to take part in that. If you're just an ocean kind of guy, Portsmouth, New Hampshire is right on the coast. It's about an hour away, and it's a tremendous walking town with lots of shops and stores. So many good things, and so close to the ballpark. If you happen to be in our area when there's an event at the Verizon Wireless Arena, which is right up the street, that can be fun as well.
Bob Lipman, thank you very much for your time this week.
Good luck, everybody, and hope it's a great week, and we'll talk with you soon.
All right. Well, from AA New Hampshire, off we go up the ladder in the Toronto Blue Jays organization on Around the Nest to speak with the voice of the AAA Buffalo Bisons, Ben Wagner. Ben, how are you?
Doing great. Now, if Mother Nature can cooperate once again, I think we'll be firing on all cylinders from Scranton.
It's that April. It's April in the International League and April in Pennsylvania or in New York. How has the weather allowed the team to get into a rhythm or maybe trying to find a rhythm?
The last week has been really good. Unfortunately, some radar popped up with a lot of green on it towards the southwest earlier today, so that puts everybody in panic mode around the ballpark here in Moosic. But from a Bison perspective, we're moving forward as preparing for a 7:05 first pitch and looking forward to another outing from a very solid 2014 so far from Sean Nolan.
Well, yesterday, how about the solid 2014 for Liam Hendricks?
Liam's been a great addition to the Bisons and the Blue Jays organization. Somebody that bounced around to 4 different organizations this entire offseason and couldn't be happier with where he landed. And knowing him like I have and the success that he's had at AAA as well, and the kind of pitcher that he goes out, chewing up innings, throwing a ton of strikes, not afraid of contact, he just turned into another stellar Liam Hendricks performance yesterday and gave the club every opportunity, working into the 6th inning, to go ahead and log the victory, which Buffalo needed to snap their 3-game losing streak and try to get things right back on track. And when you can get the table setter and one of the league's best early on in terms of ERA to give you a quality outing, to notch a victory, and then set the table for Sean Nolan and Marcus Stroman, who will follow suit in the rotation, this is a 3-day window where Buffalo can really take advantage.
This has been a strong start to the year for Liam, for Sean Nolan, for Marcus Stroman, with the occasional hiccup. It was not a good start to the season for Kevin Pillar. Pillar really struggled in the major leagues toward the end of last year and then struggling in spring training. That cold spell lasted into the start of this year, but now it looks like those slumps are behind him.
I think so, and you talk to Kevin, he points back to even August, maybe even late July, when this hiccup really started for him, and he used the term, I changed as a hitter. And some people will point to the big leagues where he went and maybe fell out of his routine a little bit, but he points to still a couple of things that he was doing at the plate in terms of adjustment where he fell out of the rhythm and turned himself into, with some of the power numbers, he said he was trying to drive the ball a little bit more, not hit line drives and let the drive happen naturally. So he points even earlier than what his big league experience had, that runoff. And it carried through spring training where he did not have solid numbers. And then a 1-for-24 start was as surprising for him as anybody else that had been chronicling his career, knowing that he is the type of hitter that hits his way to the next level. He did that from AA to get to AAA, and his AAA numbers then, even though they were on the downward trend, got him right back up to the big leagues. So it's been a little bit of a struggle early on to find some consistent at-bats, but Buffalo has played uninterrupted for about a week. We did have that scheduled off day on Easter in Pawtucket, but we had a doubleheader right before that. And Pillar has removed himself from that 1-for-24 slide, carrying an 8-game hit streak that's been pretty loud. And over the last 2 weeks, he's collected hits in every game except for just 2. So I think it's definitely on the up and up, and he, more than anybody, is looking forward to warmer weather, being a California native. He's one of the heavily dressed in this cold weather in Pennsylvania over the last 3 days.
It's funny to me. I've heard a lot about how hitting coaches and pitching coaches go about their business at the major league level as opposed to in the minors, with all the video and all that has gone on and all of the instruction that these players have received throughout the course of their careers. And then yet you look at a guy like Kevin Pillar, who still, his professional career is very young. And so I wonder about the work that he's put in with Richie Hebner.
Well, Richie is one of those guys that is in love with the cage, and I think he absolutely appreciates video and the modern conveniences that it'll provide for the player. He's there. He will talk about things on video, but he also likes to get in the cage and really break down swings and watch guys not only during batting practice, then go in the cage or under the bowels of a ballpark and work on flips and watch a guy on the approach and break down the swing as he's working on the tee. Those are the kind of things that Hack will talk about hitting with guys until he's blue in the face. And then, of course, he'll as well, not only talk about the approach, but the individual themselves within those given roles too. So I think with the body of work that he has as a professional, but also as a hitting coach, Richie Hebner is a great well of knowledge that players can rely on.
Let's skip right to our question of the week for you, Ben. For fans visiting Buffalo and the area and the stadium, what advice would you give them if they come in from out of town and they don't know their way around?
Well, this is a layup. I mean, you're within 30 minutes from Niagara Falls, one of the most spectacular scenes you will ever find in the world. So that has to be on the checklist if you're coming to our fair city. And then, of course, you have unbelievable resources when it's coming to wings. So come with an appetite, come with a camera, take advantage of all the scenery, and, of course, as much wings as you can possibly ingest, whether you're staying for a day or a couple of days. You have to know your basic hot, medium, or mild. Or if you want to go off the track a little bit and you want, your garlic parms or, your Caribbean jerk, yeah, you can get that as well on your wings. So those are definitely pending questions for anybody traveling to Buffalo. But in all honesty, the spectacular views that Western New York provides in terms of ski country, if you want to go about an hour south and maybe 30 minutes south as well, a great town called East Aurora. You can go to Ellicottville, outside Buffalo. Those are two great stops that are just south of the city. You can travel into Canada, and I would always encourage people to experience both sides of the Canadian and American border at Niagara Falls because they're very different, and they both add on from the American Falls side to the Canadian and the Horseshoe Falls. You can get different perspectives as well, and there are interesting things to do with both Niagara Falls, Canada, and Niagara Falls, USA. And then, of course, the convenience of the new affiliation, you're 90 minutes from downtown Toronto. So if you have the opportunity or the flexibility in your travel plans and you can make a long weekend out of it, you can go from the hustle and bustle of the big city all the way towards, the lackadaisical approach to life in ski country, whether it's in the middle of the winter, which the towns are great to walk through and stroll and do all the village shopping. But there's definitely no shortage of food and there's no shortage of scenery, plus some great baseball that we provide as the backdrop in downtown Buffalo.
Just perfect. Well, speaking with Ben Wagner, voice of the AAA Buffalo Bisons, let me get into just a little bit of depth with Buffalo wings. Because if you go into Chicago, the residents will have specific advice. It's not just the Chicago-style deep dish pizza. You need to go to this place. It's not just, for example, New York City pizza. You need to go to that place. So what are the best places for buffalo wings in Buffalo?
Well, I will give you one of my top spots, and it's in downtown Buffalo, and it's called Gabriel's Gate. I think they do a tremendous job. They give you enough options as well. If you like your wings what is referred to as wet, and that's tossed in the sauce, you have that option. Or if you like them a little bit on the drier side, they have a technique where they're going to throw them on the grill. And that's convenient because if people are coming in and they're staying at the hotels, they can easily find Gabriel's Gate. It's in a great food and beverage district as well, so you can kill some time strolling around, hopping from spot to spot, and then you can get your fill at Gabriel's Gate. The two staples in Buffalo where the chicken wing and buffalo wings are known to be invented and claim the story. That, of course, is the Anchor Bar. That's on in downtown Buffalo on Main Street, and it's right there in the same neighborhood as well as Gabriel's Gate. But then there's another place that has become almost regionalized now, and that's called Duff's. And they win a lot of awards at the National Buffalo Wing Festival, which is actually at Coca-Cola Field over the Labor Day weekend. Duff's walks away with a lot of hardware as well. And that's an institution in Western New York and now Southern Ontario as well. So those are a couple of places. And then if you go off the grid a little bit, you've got Doc Sullivan's in South Buffalo. There are a couple of other spots. Pat Malacaro, who is a lifelong resident of Buffalo, is in the broadcast booth with me. You want to fire off a quick couple of ideas? Easy one is Lenova, a great partner of the Buffalo Bisons. They as well will not only have wings fresh if you go to Lenova, and you can get some great pizza, but you can also get the wings piping hot delivered. They do an amazing job with their delivery, where they won't come out all mushy and goopy like some of the delivered wings come out. But Lenova does a great job. I think it's the technique that they use wrapping the foil around the wings. So, so Lenova is a great one as well. So I think those are like our top five. Yeah, those are our top five. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. We'll hear a little bit more from Ben Wagner later on in the program when he sits down with Darren Mastriani. But Ben, how was it having Darren back?
I think it's great. It's a wonderful addition to this club because you have interchangeable parts in the outfield. You know roster moves at some point will happen, and if it happens in the outfield, you can plug and play three different individuals at one time, whether it's right, center, or left. All three guys can play it. When Mastriani arrived, he made back-to-back starts in center. Anthony Ghost went over to play right field. They flip-flopped going into tonight's affair on the card. Gary Ellenson has Ghost right back in center, but Mastriani, who has played tons of games in the International League with Rochester at this ballpark and all of the stops along the way, is going to play in right field tonight. So these are guys that are comfortable, once again, at AAA, and with Kevin Pillar, who can also play all three outfield positions. This is not only a lineup that can play all three different spots, but cover some serious real estate and definitely help out the pitching.
Good times ahead for the Buffalo Bisons, and Sean Nolan scheduled to start tonight. Ben, thank you very much for joining us this week.
Have a great week. Look forward to next Friday.
Absolutely. All right, let's go on down the ladder. Let's join in Al Hernandez, the voice of the Dunedin Blue Jays, who accompanies Tyler Murray in the Florida State League, Class A Advance for the Blue Jays. Al, how are you?
I'm great, Jesse. Thanks for having me today. My first time on Around the Nest. I'm very excited, and I'm honored to be considered the voice of the Dunedin Blue Jays. I think that title still belongs to Tyler Murray. That before I knocked him off, of course.
When Tyler doesn't join us, we can always call him the voice of the people. But since we have you here now, you get to provide the perspective on a team that has just been dominating the Florida State League, looking up and down the lineup. Junior and Dalton Pompey are getting on base multiple times every single game. Meanwhile, it's so difficult to score against the starting pitching, and then the relievers, they shut you down too. So before we even get into depth, how much fun has it been for you?
Well, this is by far the most successful team I have ever been a part of or even cheered for. So it's been the most exciting April of my life, and I really look forward to this continuing on and hopefully lasting throughout at least the first half. And I'm sure we'll be losing a few guys to Buffalo sooner or later. New Hampshire.
Well, hey, you never know how far a guy might get in the year. All right, let's get into specifics with Al speaking about the Dunedin Blue Jays in the Florida State League. First, who are your surprises? Who have been guys who've just jumped right out of the gate, and it shocked you how successful they've been?
Emilio Guerrero specifically, the shortstop. He spent most of the time at shortstop, but has played a bit at third base as well. He's just blown me away with his ability at the plate. He wasn't one of the top-rated guys coming in, but he's really shown off, especially at the plate. But he's also done well in the field. He has great range out there. But with his lanky frame, you wouldn't expect the guy to bring much power, but he really does. He already has 2 home runs on the season, and he's been a force to be reckoned with. He's now on an 11-game hitting streak, so he's just blown me away. I was not expecting it, wasn't ready for it. This is an infield full of lots of talent. Obviously, Christian Lopes, Jorge Flores, and Gustavo Pierre. But Emilio Guerrero has been the diamond in the rough that has pleasantly surprised me.
Emilio's surprised. I think that there are a ton of other guys who are succeeding who maybe you expected to see them do well. And I'm going to look right into the eyes of Dalton Pompey and Dwight Smith Jr. at the top of your order, who have been unstoppable. Who every single game they're getting on multiple times via base hits, via drawing walks, and they're causing trouble. How is each one of them excelling so far?
Dwight Smith Jr. at the top of the lineup has stayed very aggressive. I'm sure everybody by now has heard about the 2 home runs he hit off of Cole Hamels. But he stays aggressive early in the count and has just shown quick bat speed, slapping the ball all over the diamond, specifically just really staying mostly towards singles. Hasn't showed too much power outside of that 2 home run game. So he's been an aggressive guy at the top of the lineup. But then Dalton Pompey batting second has been as patient comes. I don't know how many times I've seen him go down 0-2 to begin an at-bat and then work it to 3-2, drawing a walk or slapping it through the infield. His patience has been phenomenal, and he just hit his first home run in Lakeland a couple days ago. So the power is starting to show up as well. And the great thing about Dalton Pompey is once he gets on base, if there's no one on second, he'll be there in moments.
11 for 11 stealing bases this year. Has it looked that easy?
Yes, he gets good jumps, and then eventually, occasionally when he does not get a good jump, his blazing speed just makes up for it. He doesn't look like that fast of a guy until you see him when he looks dead after a bad jump off of first. He looks like he's going to be gunned down, and somehow he just turns on the afterburners, kicks it into high gear, and slides in safely.
From the starting lineup, let's go to the starting rotation. Daniel Norris has been pretty darn good. Taylor Cole has been pretty darn good. And then there's Matt Boyd, who received a write-up in USA Today this week. I just got my issue of Baseball Weekly in the mail, and there it is, a profile on a guy who's only allowed 1 run in 23 innings. So that rotation, it can give you strikeouts, and it can give you lockdown frames.
And the most impressive part about Matt Boyd is you said he's allowed 1 run in his 23 innings, and that 1 run came on a solo home run to Tyrone Taylor. I'm sure everybody here recognizes that name and understands how highly touted of a prospect he is. But that home run could be considered wind assisted as the wind was howling out to left. He hit a high fly ball, and it was carried. So that one mistake, you take that back, and it's 23 scoreless innings for Matt Boyd.
Not bad. Not bad at all. Is every pitch working for him right now? What is he working on?
I'd say every pitch is working for him. We've seen that fastball in the low 90s, been able to locate it, but his breaking pitches have just been keeping everyone off kilter, and then his changeup. There's not much you can complain about a guy when he's struck out 25 men in 23 innings and allowed just 1 run. I can't sing the praises of him enough. I honestly am a little surprised he's still here in Dunedin.
Well, in case you want a guy, if Matt Boyd gets the call up to AA, we've got a guy for you in Kendall Graveman, who might be along shortly. Let's just put it like that. But before we leave that starting rotation, I got to ask you about Ben White, who is the heartbeat of the Lansing Lugnuts last year. He's self-proclaimed heartbeat of the team, a blast to be around, and I'm glad to see him succeeding in Dunedin. It doesn't strike too many guys out, but then again, he battles his way through, and you've got battlers with him and Jesse Hernandez to supplement the 3 other guys.
Ben White, when he goes out there, he's not impressive. He doesn't catch the eye just by the eye test. But then once you really watch him, you realize he's getting everybody out. How is he doing it? He's not blowing guys away. He doesn't have a devastating curveball like Daniel Norris, but he's effective. I can't quite put my finger on it, but he's always a blast to watch. And when Ben White and Jesse Hernandez are, quote-unquote, the weak links in your rotation, I think you got a pretty darn good rotation.
You guys have better than a darn good bullpen. Eric Sekula, only 1 earned run allowed in 7 2/3. He's already recorded 6 saves. Chad Gerardo's only allowed 1 unearned run. Meanwhile, it's just up and down that bullpen you look. Efrain Nieves has been very solid for you. A.J. Meyer has been solid. Blake McFarland has been more than solid. It's almost as if whoever you call upon from that pen, Kramer Champlin, etc., Danny Barnes, you know that they will get out, and they will get those outs in a hurry.
And the part that makes them so unfair, I'll say, is that we've seen almost everyone out of this bullpen go multiple innings. We know Kramer Champlin can go multiple innings. He made a spot start already once this season. Chad Gerardo, we've seen him go 3 innings. We've seen Justin Jackson go multiple innings. We've seen Blake McFarland go 5 innings. Almost everyone out of this bullpen can give you multiple shutdown innings. So even when guys like Daniel Norris, who are on a strict pitch count, can only go 4 or 5 innings because they've thrown so many pitches, we can rely on 1 or 2 relievers to come in and finish the game for us.
I think you could hear our joy. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler and Around the Nest, joined by Al Hernandez with the Dunedin Blue Jays, speaking about the 15-5 DJs. You mentioned Justin Jackson. Justin, a very likable guy, making the transition from infielder/outfielder. It was a shortstop when he was drafted. He briefly tried out left field, and then he transitioned to the pitcher's mound. Here he is, second season on the mound, and how are things looking?
Well, Justin started the season, I'd say maybe on a sour note. Early in the year, he did allow a 3-run homer to Dan Vogelbach in Daytona to the Cubs. But you have to look at the context of that inning. It was in a game where they had a large lead, so I'm sure he's just throwing strikes, avoiding trying to walk guys, as he is still new to pitching, you said. He's really relied on a fastball and slider combination, and if you take out that 1-4 inning, he's been very strong for this Dunedin team. He came out in a game where, as I said, Kramer Champlin made a spot start. Kramer Champlin against Brevard County could only go 2 1/3 innings because of a high pitch count. He had to be removed, and Justin Jackson came in and shut down the Manatees offense, in particular Tyrone Taylor and Victor Roach, the 2 big names in that lineup, and he came in and pitched, I believe it was 4 no-hit innings. So Justin Jackson, I'd say, a pleasant surprise coming out of the bullpen. We weren't sure what we were going to get out of him, but he's exceeded expectations.
And lastly, with Al, here's our question of this week's Around the Nest that we've been giving all the different broadcasters. For fans visiting the Dunedin area from out of town who've never been to the ballpark or the city before, what advice would you give them?
Well, let me preface my answer by saying I'm still fairly new to the Dunedin area, so I am not an expert quite yet. But I have discovered quite a few places I like to hang out. I'll say first and foremost, the downtown area is just a few minutes down the street. You can walk there from the ballpark, and there's lots of mainstays on the main street of downtown. I particularly enjoy Dunedin Brewery. They brew all their beer in-house if you're a beer kind of guy. Fantastic fish tacos. I'm a big fish taco guy as well. And there's a few bars on the strip as well, like Flanagan's, that support the Dunedin Blue Jays. You can go there. You can always find a big Dunedin contingency there. But if you're into maybe the beach, which is just 2 minutes away, there's also Honeymoon Island and Caladesi Island, which have been voted among the best beaches in the country. So if you're down for the sun and some waves, those are the places to be. And also, we're in an area that has so many ballparks close by. Bright House Field, home of the Clearwater Threshers, just a few minutes away. That's actually where we are right now playing the Clearwater Threshers tonight. It's a beautiful ballpark if you want to get out and see other fields. The Bradenton Marauders ballpark, McKechnie Field, not too far away south on 275. And then if you want to head up to George Steinbrenner Field in Tampa to see the Yankees affiliate, there's a lot of baseball in the area, and you can hit up a few different games if you're here for a weekend.
This is Al Hernandez with the Dunedin Blue Jays, Class A advanced in the Jays organization. I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler on Around the Nest. And now this is the portion where usually, whether it's Tyler Murray or maybe it's you, we turn things around and we say, what questions do you guys have for the Lansing Lugnuts?
I'm glad you bring that up because I do have a few questions for you guys at the Lansing Lugnuts. I'll start with Mitch Ney, which I'm sure you've gotten quite a few questions about. We see he's just tearing the cover off the ball. What's it like to watch him play, and how soon will it be until we possibly see him here in Dunedin?
Well, I think we're keeping Mitch the entire year. He's very young. This is his first experience at the full season level. So unless he starts batting .450, I think he'll stick around for Lansing this season, and you'll get to see him next year. There's no great rush. After he got drafted, In 2012, he missed the season due to injury. So last year was his first professional season and also his first experience in the minor leagues in general. Oh, by the way, he led the Appalachian League in runs batted in. And then he moved up to Vancouver, and he was the Northwest League postseason MVP. He's extraordinarily impressive just having a look at him. Big guy, mature guy for his age, has a balanced approach at home plate. And even though he looks really fearsome, you get him down 2 strikes, he doesn't panic, he doesn't try to do too much, he jabs the ball into right field. He's got an outstanding 2-strike approach for somebody at his age. And every now and then he'll turn on one. We haven't seen so much power yet, maybe a line drive down the left field line or a line drive into right center. But that power is coming, especially once we get out of the cold and the wind. For the moment, if there's a runner at second base and 2 outs, that's a tough spot for the opposing pitcher to be in because Mitch does exactly what his team needs him to do. He'll just reach out and slap a base hit, and he'll bring in more runs. And meanwhile, at third base, he's got plenty of arm. He's got a fine glove. He is exactly the sort of guy you want to have up to supply runs for an offense.
I started with Mitch Nay, the hot, maybe shift over to DJ Davis, who's been struggling a bit recently. What do you think the issue with him has been at the plate?
He's young. He's 19. He came out of Mississippi High School, and there's a difference between his baseball background and Mitch Nay's baseball background. Mitch's grandfather played in the major leagues. He's out of Chandler, Arizona. That is a huge baseball hotbed. As a matter of fact, the Lugnuts hitting coach, Ken Huckabee, is also from Chandler. There's a lot of baseball that goes on in Chandler, and so you can be young and still face quality competition. There's coaches all over the place, and it's clear that Mitch has a practiced swing and a practiced approach. DJ needs time. He's from Wiggins, Mississippi. He is so toolsy. But let me tell you, he might have a game where he goes 0 for 5, strikes out 3 times. He might have a game where he drops the ball in the outfield or makes a poor throw. And then the very next inning or the next game, whenever it is, he makes a play that just makes you sit up and blink your eyes as if you weren't quite sure that it actually happened. He's made SportsCenter already this year, made a diving catch with 2 runners on and 2 outs in deepest left center field, and I think it was the number 4 play of the night in the SportsCenter top 10. Then there was a game that he made a couple of days ago, a game in which he beat Lake County all by himself. In the early going, he made a running catch in deepest left center and crashed into the billboard to haul in what should have been extra bases for Claudio Bautista. So he keeps the game close. Then he comes up to the plate. The Lugnuts are down 4-0. He crushes a 3-run triple. He scores a run. It's now 4-4. Mitch Nay drove him in with an RBI single. Comes up in the late going, I think it was the 7th inning, an RBI ground out. Did not try to do too much. Brought in a teammate who was 5 before Lansing. And then in the bottom of the 9th, once Lake County had tied up the game, he supplied a game-winning RBI single against the unhittable closer of the Captains, Trevor Frank. It was more than that. It was a sharp grounder that he yanked down the first base line, but it was enough to score a teammate. He drove in 5. He scored a run in a 6-5 win, and he made the catch of the night. That's what he does in a game. He can affect you with his bat. He can affect you with his speed, with his defense. He's got a strong arm. And so any game where he goes over, you simply say, he just needs time. And then the next game, he's showing off amazing power or that speed or an opposite field stroke. What he does well are things that you usually want to teach the older players. Use the entire field or start driving the baseball or maybe wait for your pitch. So he's young, but the tools are there, and they're the right tools to help his team win.
You may have already answered my next question describing DJ Davis, but I'll ask it anyway. Is there one player that we're missing when we look at the box score that the box score and the numbers may not tell the whole story of, and we should still keep an eye out for?
Let me bring in Trey Wilson, who calls the Lugnuts games with me here in Lansing and in the Midwest League. Trey, who stands out to you?
With this Lansing squad so year, I have to say it's Mitch Nay. The way that he hits runners in scoring position is absurd. And to see him do it now 2 years in a row, we're still early in this year, where we're hitting almost 500 with runners in scoring position. That's impressive.
Well, it's hard to argue against Mitch Nay. I understand that. Thanks, Trey, for coming in and enlightening us a little bit more. And I guess my final question will be, you already touched on this as well with Kendall Graveman, but do you think Graveman is, or if not Graveman, who do you think is the player in Lansing closest to being promoted to Dunedin?
Trey, it's Kendall, right?
I think it's got to be Kendall.
So to just give you more background and more information now, Kendall Graveman is a college draft pick and a top 10 round pick last year out of Mississippi State University. Southern gentleman. Goes out there, works really hard in between starts, really likable guy, and then he heads out to the mountain and he throws sinkers. Sinker, sinker, sinker. That is all. Oh, by the way, he'll break off a crazy slider or a terrific changeup, and nothing goes on. As in, there are no base runners. If you score against him, it's a miracle. He's given up one earned run. He's given up one unearned run this year. If you get ball 2 against him, that's impressive. That's how good he's been. All of his innings, especially once he gets rolling, are clean innings. He has the best pitched game of the minor league season in the country. He brought a no-hitter into 1 out in the 9th inning against the Beloit Snappers, and he lost the no-hitter on a smash toward shortstop that Dawel Lugo, probably if you ask him, Lugo would say that he could have made that play. It just took a tough short hop against him. But Kendall nearly had himself a no-hitter. That's how good he's been. He has been our answer to your Matt Boyd.
And he's been that way really over all 4 starts. He's been so consistent in that whip. Like you said, nobody gets on. He has an 0.65 whip so far through his first 4 starts this year. That's just unbelievable.
Well, thank you, Jesse and Trey. I think you guys answered all of my questions for this week at least.
Well, thank you, Al. And Trey, let me offer, because you are new to this area, so anything that occurs to you, here's our question of the week on Around the Nest, and that is, any advice to someone coming into Lansing for their first time?
Well, I haven't had a lot of time to explore Lansing yet because obviously we spend most of our time at the ballpark and off days are rare. But, I mean, if I had to, my list of things that I would like to see while I'm here, I think I'd like to take a tour of the state capitol. I think that would be pretty cool. You can see it from the front of the stadium here. It's just a couple blocks down the street. I think that would be something that would be interesting to check out. There is all kinds of great food here. I've noticed that at the ballpark, first of all, the food is fantastic. I'm still trying to make my way through all the different options here. But in town, there are lots of cool local places to eat over near the Capitol, just a couple blocks away from the stadium. And I can't think of the names of any off the top of my head, but there's a whole street of little locally owned restaurants and delis that I thought so far, when I've been able to check them out, they've all been delicious. And you know I like my food.
Oh, yes. And Michigan State University just down the street. So state capitol and the enormous college, Big Ten football, basketball, hockey, baseball, etc. This was actually how this show began. Single A Lansing Lugnuts talk with Dunedin and Lansing Lugnuts broadcasters speaking with one another. Well, Al Hernandez, thank you very much for joining us for your debut, and we hope to speak with you in an ensuing week.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure, and I agree. I hope to be a frequent guest of Around the Nest.
And so for Al and Trey Wilson, and also for Ben Wagner with the Buffalo Bisons and Bob Lipman with the New Hampshire Fisher Cats, I'm Jesse Goldberg-Strassler. This has been Around the Nest. I guess we'll push back our interview with Darren Mastriani another week from Ben Wagner. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. Check out Bluebird Banter and SB Nation for all the latest goings-on. And you can find us online at aroundthenest.mlblogs.com. Here's wishing you well, and until next week.